Welcome once again to another installment of Game Reviews. Today we're going to take a look at a couple of video games based on... That's right, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I remember watching this show back in 1993 as a kid, but I stopped watching it after Season 4. Though I do have the toys, except I used to have the monsters from the show, only I got rid of them. Yeah, I know I totally regret on doing that. I wish I still had them. But let's get that out of the way and start the show. We'll begin with the one for the Sega Genesis, which is the first Power Rangers game I played and I used to own, developed by Banpresto. As soon as you start the game, you get to see a cutscene of Rita's palace, and I will say the cutscenes look really good. Now the gameplay is a fighting game, kinda like Street Fighter 2. All you do is beat the shit out of your opponent and you win, but in the second round you have to fight him or her again in giant form, so you know what that means, right?
We need dinosaurs power now!
You get to play as Megazord to fight off a giant monster, just like in the show. Next, you face the Green Ranger and Dragonzord. Once you defeat them, they're playable. In the final stage, you get to face Cyclopsis. After that, you get to see the Zords form into Ultrazord as they demolish Rita's palace. Now, speaking of used to own, I got this game for Christmas back in 1994, but I don't have it anymore as well as the Genesis. That's basically my story. Overall, it's a fun game, and I haven't played it for 20 years. Next, we got Power Rangers on Super Nintendo, developed by Natsume, that brought you Ninja Warriors. While the Genesis version was a fighting game, the one for the Super NES is a side-scrolling beat-em-up. You start out as the teenagers fighting off the putties, and when you encounter the monster, you morph into a Power Ranger and battle the boss at the end. Oh, and the Green Ranger is not in this game. Sorry.
That sucks!
In the last two stages, you play as Megazord and fight off against two giant monsters, one being the zombie monster's second form, who is known as Devil Franken from Zeo Rangers, and the last being Cyclopsis in both forms. I do have a bit of a story. As a kid, I never bought this game in the stores, rather bought it from a garage sale for like $5 back in 1997. Then there's one for the Sega CD, which I never owned, as well as the game itself, but from what I heard, it plays like Dragon's Lair. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie. It's another side-scrolling beat-em-up released both for the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo, and no, I've never played them before. Moving on to Power Rangers The Fighting Edition. I first played it on the SNES emulator back in May. It's a really fun fighting game playing as Lord Zed, his monsters, Goldar, and the Megazords. Speaking of which, it would have been cool to have the original Megazord and Dragonzord in this game. There's also Power Rangers Zeo Battle Racers, even though I've never played it, and if you ever did, it may remind you of something. Yeah. Now to close things out, I find the Genesis and Super NES versions of Power Rangers really fun games, which I haven't played for years. As for the Fighting Edition, I enjoyed that one as well. Sure, these three have the same title, only they're different versions, but if I had to choose, which would I pick? Well folks, this ends yet another installment of Game Reviews, and until then, in the words of T-Bone 2004, I thank you for your time and have a pleasant day.